Welcome to week 1 of my Overwatch League Stage 4 key matches. Wednesdays never really feel right when I can't upload one of these, so I'm glad I finally get to bring this series back. But since it's been a couple of weeks since I've made a key match video, let me quickly explain how it works for any of you who may be new to them. So basically, what I do is pick out games that I recommend watching every single week of the regular season. I usually give a brief explanation as to why I feel this way and give my score predictions as well. I also may highlight some specific player matchups that I recommend keeping an eye on. And yeah, that's pretty much everything you need to know. These videos are really straightforward, but before I get into my Thursday matches, let me give you a brief rundown of some of the details you should probably know about coming into Stage 4. First off, like with any other stage, every single team will participate in 7 games over the next 5 weeks. It's also worth noting that there will be a homestand for the LA Valiant during week 5. There are a few things that'll be different about this stage that you should definitely be aware of too. The first of which is that there is not going to be any stage playoffs, and if you're wondering why this is exactly, then it's likely because they want teams to focus in on the end of your playing tournament and overall playoffs. Another major change that is happening is obviously the 2-2-2 role lock that's being implemented, which of course means that all team compositions will have to consist of 2 tanks, 2 supports, and 2 DPS. Another thing you should know is that the map pool is changing. In Stage 4, the control maps will be Ilios, Busan, and Lijiang Tower. Your Assault, aka 2 CP maps, will be Hanamura, Volskaya Industries, and Temple of Anubis. The hybrid maps will consist of Hollywood, Blizzard World, and Kings Row. And finally on Escort, you'll see Havana, Junkertown, and Route 66. And the final thing that you should know is that the players will be playing on patch 1.38, which is the one that is currently live in the game as of this video. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's take a look at my key matches this week starting with Thursday. And yes, I probably could argue that every single game each day is important since everybody's playing DPS again, but if I did that, we'd be here all day. So let me try and recommend games that stand out the most for me at least. The first of which, of course, would be the NYXL versus LA Gladiators. In my opinion, there is a lot of hype surrounding this matchup. Both teams have some very talented DPS players, so it should be exciting to watch them go head to head. Decay versus Nene, Pine, or whoever else plays Widow and Hitscan in general for the NYXL should make for an epic battle. Definitely pay attention to how Decay does against some of these other world-class DPS players. Everybody's been hyping him up a lot ever since the Gladiators won the bidding war for him, and now it's time for Decay to prove his worth by holding his own against some of the other best DPS players in the world. Something else to note about this game is that it's a rematch from the Stage 2 playoffs. Now obviously, things are a little bit different now that GOATS is no longer meta, but still, this is definitely a game the Gladiators want to win so they can dish out some payback for when they got embarrassed in the playoffs. As to my prediction for the outcome of this game, I've got the NYXL taking it 3-2. I see the Gladiators keeping things real close here. A meta potentially involving a lot of bunker will definitely work to their advantage since they're so good at it. However, I have a gut feeling that the NYXL DPS have a slightly better day while Jonik outplays Shaz in the flex support battle. Don't be surprised if the Gladiators take it though. This meta plays to their strengths a lot, and I feel that their style could give the NYXL some trouble. Key match number 2 on Thursday will be the Guangzhou Charge taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. The big reason you should consider tuning in for this one is because of the battle of DPS duos. Happy and Nero versus Carpe and EQO in either dive or a double sniper mirror match sounds really exciting on paper. I'm especially excited for Carpe versus Happy since these two are 2 of the best Widow duelists in the entire league. But also, I'm sure that both of these duos are overjoyed to be back on DPS full time, so I'm honestly expecting them to put on a show. Don't be surprised to see some crazy highlight level plays in this game. Make sure to pay close attention to Sato too. Now that he's not on Reinhardt so much anymore, it's going to be interesting to see if he can step up his game and not be seen as such a major weakness on the Fusion. And the final reason to pay attention to this game is because we get to see Fraggy and Bishu make their debut on their new team potentially. If Fraggy plays against his former team in his first game back on stage, then things would be very interesting. As to who I think wins this game, well, I think I'll go with the Fusion 3-1 in what should be a game that's closer than the score suggests. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the Charge won though, because they're honestly really good at DPS comps and the Fusion are pretty inconsistent at times, but I have a gut feeling that the Fusion DPS are going to show up and have a really good day. My final key game of Thursday night will be the Shanghai Dragons versus Vancouver Titans. Talk about a crazy way to end opening night. The Dragons are here to show to everybody that their win over Vancouver in the stage playoffs was not a fluke, and that they will still be one of the top DPS teams in the league even in a 2-2-2 lock. We also have the interest factor of seeing how well Vancouver plays in a non-GOATS meta. Will they be able to show similar dominance from earlier on in the year, or will they fall off a little bit? I'm sure that Runaway fans are really excited to potentially see more of that OG Haxel Genji too. This game could definitely end up being really close, but I for one am unsure of how good the Titans will actually be with DPS comps, and I know that the Dragons are good with them already, so for that reason I'm picking Shanghai to win 3-1. I know it may seem dumb to pick my winner for such a cautious reason, but that's how I feel. I'm confident in the Dragons to be good at DPS, but I'm not so certain with the Titans. Moving on to Friday, the first game that catches my attention is the Washington Justice versus Toronto Defiant. There's 3 reasons in particular that I'm interested in this game. For one, there's a chance we see Washington's new tank line, Lulcich, and Elivolt make their Overwatch League debut. I know that a lot of people who are super into the tier 2 scene have been hyping these guys up a lot, and I'd like to see for myself if they can live up to that hype, because if they do, then the Justice could improve quite a bit this stage. Reason number 2 for tuning into this game is to see what Toronto does with their DPS. The obvious answer would be is that they just run Logix and Mangachu since they did pretty well towards the end of Stage 3, but maybe Ivy and I'm37 get some time on stage as well. After all, they're pretty good on DPS themselves. The final reason though to watch this game, in my opinion, is to see if DPS really is the answer for the Justice. And what I mean by this is that the common opinion regarding the Justice is that they'll be stronger now that Goats is dead. Let's see if the likes of Corey, Otto, and Stratus can hold their own against the DPS talent on Toronto. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I think there's a chance this game ends up being really close, which is the exact reason why I'm going with Toronto 3-2. The big reason why I think the Justice will fall short is simply because it'll be their new tank line's first game in the Overwatch League, so I'm expecting them to be a little nervous on stage, which should lead to some mistakes during the game. Game number 2 you should watch out for on Friday is the Dallas Fuel versus London Spitfire. Seeing London play some of those comps that won them the finals last year is definitely near the top of the list. Let's see if they still have what it takes to dominate using Orisa, snipers, dive, or whatever else they plan to use. Just watching Profit on more DPS in general sounds like a lot of fun though, and that's honestly a good enough reason alone to at least watch a map or two. And what about the Dallas Fuel? Well, potentially seeing Taimu more on stage would definitely be epic. But make sure to look at what happens with Zachary. It's finally time to see if Zach can live up to the expectations that his coaches gave for him when it comes to being a reliable flex DPS player. But because I think London are a little bit better in the bunker setup, I'm going to pick them to win 3-1. Pay attention to the Widowmaker battle between Birdring and either Taimu or AKM. I feel that whoever has the better day could dictate who has the advantage in this match. And lastly, my final key matchup of Friday night will be the San Francisco Shock versus the Seoul Dynasty. So far, the Dynasty are 0-2 against the Shock if you count the stage playoffs, so I'm sure they'll be looking to get some revenge here. And what better way to do so than in a meta where you can fully unleash your talented DPS players? Fleta finally gets to play nothing but DPS. No more Brig or Zarya jail for him. Illicit and Fitz are also pretty intriguing, I feel. Illicit is a pretty good projectile player based off of what I've heard and seen, but so is Fleta. So will Fleta and him ever play at the same time together, or will their dedicated hitscan player Fitz be in pretty much all the time since Munchkin is taking a break this stage? It's going to be fun to find out how their DPS rotation ends up working. The Shock definitely have some excitement factors too though. With a world-class hitscan talent like Striker and a very strong flex player like Architect being on the team, it's hard to imagine that they won't get some serious stage time now that DPS is back. And if that's the case, does that mean somebody like Sinatra or Rascal gets significantly less playtime? And what will happen with their main tank situation? Some people have concerns that Super's Winston and Orisa won't cut it, so does that mean Smurf gets more time in the starting lineup, or is Super still going to get a majority of the playtime anyway? The best way to find an answer to all of these questions is by watching the game in order to find out for yourself. In terms of my winner, I think I'll go with the San Francisco Shock in a close 3-2 victory. I predict that the Shock either get off to a slow start where they have to make a comeback of some sort, or the Dynasty end up having a really good day. Either way, I think there's a good chance this game ends up being close. The Dynasty have some good DPS talent, so they should be able to make this a tight set if they carry hard enough. Now it's time for the weekend games, and starting things off on Saturday, the first game I recommend watching is the LA Valiant versus Paris Eternal. I kind of feel like the Valiant will be a decent DPS team since they've already proven to be capable of using those types of comps in Stage 3, but Paris on the other hand I will definitely have my eye on. Their DPS core has always been seen as the strongest part of their team, and now we finally get to see if that holds up to be true. Let's see if their DPS are as strong as we thought they would be coming into the year. I personally am looking forward to potentially seeing the return of Soon and Shadowburn after getting casted aside by the time Stage 3 came around. And speaking of Soon, if he does end up playing, then this will be his first time on stage against his former team. But as exciting as the Paris DPS comps sound, I believe that the Valiant will win this game 3-1. The Paris DPS will be able to more than hold their own, believe me, but I'm a bit worried about their tank line and flex support not being able to keep up with the likes of Fact Fiction, Space, and Kareev. My other key match on Saturday will be the Atlanta Reign taking on the Hangzhou Spark. In my opinion, both of these teams on DPS have the potential to be really dangerous. There's been a lot of rumors that the Spark are really good at DPS comps, and we already know what the likes of Baby Bay and Erster are capable of, so this duel has the potential to be really epic. Godspeed Adora versus Baby Bay and Erster sounds epic. We could definitely see guys like Crystal and Bozzy get some playtime as well. But as much as the DPS deserve attention in this matchup, I feel that this game comes down to which tank line shows up more. We'll have to see if Gushwei and Rhea look better in the Winston Diva and Orisa Hog setup, or if Pokebo and Dako are the ones who gain the upper hand. Both of these tank lines are really strong and have an aggressive playstyle, Both teams also tend to rely on their tanks to give them space and to make plays for them, so whoever has the better day will probably be the team who ends up winning in my opinion. I think this game ends up being super close though, as the Sparks tank line and DPS do slightly more to secure the win. That's why I'm picking the Spark to win 3-2. And finally we have Sunday, and there's one game in particular that kind of grabs my attention on this day. And that of course is the Shanghai Dragons versus Seoul Dynasty. I'm not going to lie to you guys, this week is looking to be pretty crucial for both of these squads. Each of them have two really tough games to worry about. So needless to say, a win for either of these guys here would be huge. Both of them have a really hard stage 4 schedule, so getting as many wins as you can get is important, especially when a top 6 playoff spot is still very much up for grabs. Right now the Dynasty and the Dragons have the same overall record, with Seoul currently sitting at 6th place since they have the better map differential. So whoever wins this game could end up being in the lead for that final guaranteed playoff spot. I kind of think these teams match up pretty well with one another in terms of DPS, tanks, supports, and playstyle in general, so I'm expecting a close game. And you know what? Even though I think the Dragons are a slightly better team right now, I'm going to say the Dynasty outplay them in a 3-2 victory because why not go with the risky pick? I'm usually pretty safe with my predictions in these types of videos, so let's change it up for once. Look out for Fleta versus Ding and Marvel versus Guangzhou, by the way. I feel that these are the most pivotal individual matchups to pay attention to. Welp, that's all of them. Those are my key matches for week 1 of stage 4. What games are you looking forward to watching the most? Make sure to let me know down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this content, then be sure to like and subscribe. As always, thank you all so much for watching today's video. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. See ya!